in the grand scheme of things, how different is your training program than other programs around the country?
You know, it's very unique. We do a lot of facets of training. When you look at training from a history, historically, you know, strength and conditioning had started out as weightlifting. Basically, people came in, they trained with weightlifting, and it was more of a bodybuilding type atmosphere, and that was kind of what was utilized, and sometimes it transferred to the field, and sometimes it didn't. Now it's for us, we cover every aspect. Our goal is to eliminate any weakness that the athlete might have, whether it be in conditioning, whether it be in speed, whether it be in agility, whether it be in balance, whether it be in just flexibility, whether it be in power, whether it be in explosiveness, whatever it might be. We're trying to eliminate all the weaknesses so that the athlete's the most effective in the game. And I tell guys all the time, hey, you know, we don't lift weights to be better weightlifters. We lift weights to be better football players. It's pretty simple. So when we're down there, our training is going to try and transcend that area. When we're in that environment, we do the Olympic movements. A lot of people do Olympic movements. Olympic powerlifters, you know, obviously did it for initiating competition. We do it for a completely different reason. And we do it to train the fast twitch fibers to be better athletes, not necessarily to be able to set a world record in the clean, you know, and that's not the objective. Now, we're going to be strong. We don't have to worry about that. It's just a matter of what other types of things are we trying to accommodate. We're trying to accommodate utilizing the fast twitch fibers to make an athlete more explosive on that football field. From there, and in that environment, we move into the conventional exercises, trying to work on, smaller muscle groups and making sure that we maintain balance in the musculature so we don't have injuries, as well as we can increase performance. From there, we move into what we call a balance and functional area, where we try and teach the body to control itself in three-dimensional space. We've all seen guys that are very, very strong, can't play a lick of football. I mean, you take the world's strongest man competition, there's some pretty strong guys. They can throw a keg over the building, and that's fantastic. Problem is, it doesn't apply to offensive line or defensive line or anything else they do. You take that same guy and you throw him on the football field, he tears his hamstring off, his knee dislocates, and he ends up in the hospital with a cardiac arrest because he can't run 10 yards. So essentially what we're trying to do is take that Olympic type movement progression and make the athlete more explosive, and then do the conventional movements, make them stronger in balanced areas, from anterior to posterior, agonist to antagonist muscle groups. And then we work over into the balanced functional area and teach the body to control itself in three-dimensional space, so that strength and power that we've increased becomes more applicable to the game. You know, we're not just taking something and saying, okay, this guy's strong, he can push the wall if he needs to. Now we can take it and say, okay, he can understand exactly how much pressure he needs to get off this block or to maintain this block, how his body needs to position, how he needs to control himself in this unstable environment, so that he can apply that strength to the game of football. From there, we move into what we call our functional flexibility progressions. Pre-workout every day, we're going to do a large variety of active movements and dynamic flexibility progressions. Then we go into some static stretching before we go into the lift. Well, during the lift, we'll go into what we call a functional flexibility progression. We'll take movements that the athlete is commonly subjected to in the game of football. It might be a lunge with a rotating twist or a kick crossover with the leg. Try and increase flexibility in active movement progressions. So now that when that athlete faces that position, they have better body control because they're not limited by the restriction of range of motion of the musculature or around the joint. So we can decrease the risk of injuries or strains by putting them in that position ahead of time, also increase their performance by not having the resistance of their own musculature in that action. So now we move from there into what we call an injury prevention and prehab training cycle, which essentially we take the areas that are commonly injured in the game of football, the neck, the knee, the ankle, the shoulder, and we try and isolate those areas and strengthen them so that we're more functional in the game. So one, we reduce the risk of injury. And my problem is, a lot of places we wait till a guy gets hurt, then we take him, we send him to the training room and say, okay, now we got to work on stabilizing that joint. Well, hell, if we knew how to do it, why aren't we doing it in the first place? Doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, if I'm a person that doesn't like to leave a stone unturned. If there's something I can do to make a guy better, I'm going to do it. It's pretty simple. And that's, and when we look at those injury type things, we'll go through and stabilize those joints. It also increases our performance. You take an offensive lineman, I lock somebody out into position. Once they're pressed out, can they bench press them with straight arms? Hell, he's already out. The bench press is done. The bench is a great exercise. The problem is now what's working is the rotator cuff, scap stabilizers, and he's got to maintain that position. He might bench 500, but if those things don't work, it doesn't make a damn difference, because he can get them out there, but he can't keep them there. So now I've got to stabilize that shoulder, one, to reduce the risk of injury, but two, to allow him to generate more force and power in that position, so that that athlete has the ability to accommodate what's necessary for him to achieve his job or his goal. From there, we'll isolate every joint that is possibly injured. in the game of football and try and stabilize it. You work on the ankle, make it more stable. It's amazing how a kid cuts better because his ankle's stronger and he has better stability down there. They all apply. It's going to decrease injury and increase performance at the same time. From there, we move into a core transfer, which we do on unstable apparatuses. The game of football is not a stable environment. So to emulate that environment, we have to take our body and put it in unstable positions and teach our body to utilize its core. Our core is our abdominals, low back, and our pelvis region. That's the link between our upper and lower extremities. Okay, our upper and lower extremity power transfer is reliant on how well this core works. If I take a steel bar and I try and pry up a manhole cover, it pops right up. I take the exact same force and I get a rubber bar and I put it on a manhole cover and pull it. It doesn't go anywhere. The bar bends and the force dissipates out through the middle. The same thing happens in the human anatomy. If this bends and gives, I lose power. I dissipate force out through my spinal column and I can't send it into the other guy. And the problem with that is, one, if I can't generate my force through you, I'm either on my back or I'm putting you on your back. And the bottom line is we don't want to be on our backs. We get pancaked. They're getting yelled at. I'm getting yelled at. Somebody's getting yelled at. So the bottom line is we want to put the other guy on his back. So the stronger we are, the more steel, rigid transfer we have inside our core, the more effective we are at putting the hurt in somebody else. And that's a goal, you know. And when we look at that for power transfer, doing it in a stable environment allows us to create or emulate what happens on the field. Because if I'm an offensive lineman or defensive lineman or receiver or whatever, if I'm coming down the field and I'm getting impacted, I have to react to the pressure, control my body using those proprioceptors we talked about, teach my body to transfer power effectively, accelerate motions, and learn positioning. That's what has to take place when I'm training the abdominals and low back and the pelvis. I have to be addressing those proprioceptors and activating to emulate what happens on the field. From there, we go into plyometrics and explosive training and some impulse training, basically teaching the muscle fibers are like a rubber band. If I take a rubber band and I stretch it out and release it, it has a lot of force. If I just hold it and let it go, it has none. Your muscles are elastic in principle. If I come off a box and impact the ground, when I impact the ground, that stretch reflex stores energy inside that fiber. If I come back off the ground quickly so that force doesn't dissipate, I can take that stored energy and convert it to kinetic energy in opposing direction, making me more explosive or faster, teaching the brain to fire faster impulses and increasing my power output, thus allowing for the athlete to generate more power in a shorter period of time so the athlete's more explosive and faster. We're using the principle, we're using those proprioceptors again to try and their function originally was to stop an overstretch so we don't tear the muscle fiber. We're taking that and allowing it to stop the overstretch and store energy so we can use it to increase performance for explosiveness and get us down the field to allow us to be more explosive in our environment. We'll do that with the plyometric and explosive training. That's all done on lifting days. And then we'll run. Our conditioning is based on bioenergetics and how the energy systems scientifically adapt to what we need for Coach Rodriguez. If Rich Rodriguez needs a product, that's what he gets. We take it and give these guys, the kids, the best opportunity they can have to be successful in Rich Rodriguez's program. And the bottom line is, everything we do is prescribed for the exact scientific outlook or need of the sport based upon the way we play it. From there on Tuesday and Thursday, we do nothing but speed and agility progressions, and we run our linemen just like they're sprinters. So they all go to work, try and get faster and more explosive. And then Fridays come back and condition again. Conditioning's hell, I'm not going to lie to you. We run harder than anybody else in America. You're not going to see our running anywhere else in America. And the bottom line is, what we're looking for is you take all those facets and you say, okay, I made a kid stronger. Now I teach him to control his body better in three-dimensional space. Then he has a greater range of motion so he can move through three-dimensional space more effectively. Now he's stable in all his joints. We alleviate risk of injuries, but he transfers power more effectively from each joint. Then we come over and teach us to transfer power effectively from the upper and lower extremities so he can generate more force throughout his entire body. His speed increases because of that too. Take your hands, put them in your pocket, see how fast you run a 40. You don't run on your hands. I mean, the bottom line is this has to transfer power and maintain balance. The more effective I am with the core, the faster I can generate that power. When we look from there and we get into our plyometrics, we teach you to use that principle of stretch reflex and convert that to speed, and then teach you on Tuesdays and Thursdays to utilize speed progressions, technique, and acceleration. Next thing you know, you got an athlete that's well-rounded and has no weakness, and that's a goal.